But since I'm going to talk about baptism, I need some water. Okay, so baptism comes from Jesus Christ. He said, baptize, and this is one you can't question about at all. It's right there in the Bible. Baptize in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And there are several places in the Bible where Jesus says that you have to be baptized. All right? People often ask, why are babies baptized? Because they don't really have a say in what's going on. Because it does seem like a legitimate question, because when you talk about you got to have faith, conversion of heart, and adherence to the Father's will, it's like, why is the church baptizing babies? Because the baby doesn't have that right now, you know? So what this is the parents and godparents, they're actually acting on behalf of their baby when they're baptized. They make a profession of faith. They say, I believe in God, I believe in the Holy Spirit, I believe in Jesus Christ. It's their job to, as the baby gets older, to help the baby to understand what he or she received in baptism and to accept it. Now, I use this analogy. Imagine you have a baby and you're like, you know what? I want to respect my baby's freedom. And I'm not going to feed him anything until he's 18 years old. And that way, I don't want to force him to eat what I want to feed him. That's not fair. This is America. We have freedom. I want him to look at the menu and the ingredients and let him decide, you know. If they find out about it, they'll put you in jail and give your baby to someone who will feed them, you know. But you see, if you do that, if you say, I don't want to feed my child, you don't give the child a chance. Now, when your child grows up, if they want to stop eating at 18 years old, okay, yeah, I guess they can do that. But as a child, you want to make sure they have every chance they have to live, right? So, with regard to baptizing babies, it's like we're going to give them the opportunity. You have this gift, this grace from Jesus Christ. If when you get older, you don't want to accept it, that's up to you. But we're going to give you a chance. So that if you get older, if you're like 12 years old, you're like, I believe in Jesus, I really want to follow him, you're baptized, all right? It's also a sign to us that the grace of Jesus Christ is a gift. It's not something that we earn, all right? So baptizing a child, it's like this child has a gift. Do you know if someone has an organ transplant, their immune system wants to reject that transplant, and they have to have all these therapies to keep the immune system from rejecting the transplant. Well, baptism is like you're given a new spiritual heart, and it's a heart that praises God. It's a heart that's turning towards God, all right? But it's almost like as life goes on, there's going to be a lot of temptations to reject that heart. And we need to apply the appropriate therapies to our spiritual immune system so that we don't reject that heart. And on the case of baptizing babies, it's up to the parents and godparents to help that child accept that grace. For ourselves personally, we constantly have to apply the therapies of faith, conversion of heart, adherence to the Father's will to make sure we don't reject the heart that's been given to us by our baptism. All right, so what does baptism do? Well, if you remember, did I talk about original sin already in this class? Yeah. About Adam and Eve and the fall, and I talked about how they blamed each other and all that. Yeah. All right, so Adam and Eve, when they committed the first sin, the first thing they did is they turned away from God. Actually, it was the sin itself that turned them away from God. They weren't like, let's turn away from God and then we'll sin. They didn't even think that. They just committed the sin, and it was the sin itself that turned them away from God. So, and we see the effects of that in their relationship. We see the effects of that in what happens to humanity after that. And we can see the ongoing effects of that sin just by putting on the news, right? Tonight at Mass, I offered a special intention for prayers for peace in the Middle East. How many times have I said that at Mass in the past 20 years. I pray for peace in the world, peace in our country. It's like constant. And so there's something in humanity. Obviously, there's a lot of historical circumstances that attach itself to these situations, but there's something in humanity, go back thousands of years, where there's just fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. There's a brokenness, and that brokenness is part of original sin. So there is a brokenness in humanity, and that brokenness is a result of turning away from God. So what does baptism do? Baptism gives forgiveness of sin. So the original sin, the effects of that is clearly passed down throughout all of humanity. But one effect that people don't really talk about is the guilt. So when I say the word guilt, I'm not talking about like in a courtroom, like guilty as charged type of guilt. I'm talking about where, in the case of Adam and Eve, their spiritual heart was turned away from God. That's what I'm talking about. It's like human hearts are turned away from God. And baptism's like gonna turn it back to God. All right? And so that's what forgiveness of that guilt is. It also forgives personal sin. So if you have someone who's baptized as an adult and they've committed every sin in the book, they get baptized, they're free. They're forgiven. You could wait to the end of your life to get baptized if you want and live it up, but you don't want to do that. That's not the best way. All right. There are people who have done that. There was stories of like mafia bosses that didn't want to be baptized until they knew they were going to die. You know, so that's kind of a messy situation. But the guy on the cross next to Jesus when he was dying, he put his faith in Jesus, and Jesus says, "Today you'll be with me in paradise." So it is possible, but you don't want to do that, you know. All right, so baptism forgives sin. It turns us back to God. Sin, because it turned us away from God, deprives us of communion with God, of connection to God. All right, and so baptism is going to try to heal that. What is left over, even after baptism, is the residue of original sin, suffering, illness, death, and an inclination to sin. All right, so an inclination to sin, I use the example of, it's like we still experience, I call it a spiritual gravity that is trying to like pull us down to sin. You know, like we say that exercising is good for you. It really is, but what would you rather do? Exercise or relax in a recliner chair and take a nap, right? It's like we all have like this gravity saying, hey, go to the recliner chair. It's right over there. Go sit in it, and then you go out like a light, you know? But to exercise, you got to put some effort into it, right? To do your stretches or whatever, you got to put effort into it. Well, in the spiritual world, we got to put some effort into our faith, into conversion of heart, into adherence to the Father's will. It's not automatic. It's like an ongoing life process. Just like, you know, exercising. It's an ongoing thing. What does baptism give to us? Well, it unites us to Jesus, and it gives us faith in Jesus, hope in Him, and love for Him. I say it's like a little compass that is given to our soul, all right, that allows us to have faith, hope, and love. Those are like the three fundamental disciplines of following Jesus Christ. It's like we have this GPS system given to us by God at our baptism, but the key is you got to learn how to use it. And that's where parents and godparents come in the case of children baptized. In the case of adults, that's where studying the Bible, catechism, going to classes like this, that's where that comes in. It's like we constantly have to learn how to use that compass, that GPS, or that map, or whatever. It's like driving on the streets of Quincy. You always got to learn which way to go, you know, because some turns you got to go this, you got to turn this way to get that way, and I don't understand that. But anyway, okay. Baptism gives us gifts of the Holy Spirit. So Jesus said, "Baptize in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit." So when we're baptized, we're being connected to this mysterious God the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Baptism unites us to the church. So that's how we kind of like get into the church, through baptism, spiritually speaking. In the ritual of baptism, we have the people, if in the case of babies, we have them stand by the doorway of the church, and we welcome them at the door. And it's like a symbol that the spiritual doorway you're entering is baptism. All right. Now here's my favorite effect of baptism. It puts an indelible mark on the soul. So it's like I like the example of a tattoo put on your soul. You know, people get tattoos and they like them, and it means something to them, right? Even if no one else sees it, they're like, I like having it, right? I don't have any on me, but it's like a permanent mark on you. In the case of baptism, it's an indelible mark on your soul. It's going to be there forever. And if you take that mark to heaven, that's awesome. But if you take it to hell, that's shameful, isn't it? That's what is so bad about hell. Hell is like, I've rejected this mark on my soul, but I still have it, and it's always going to be there. This mark that says that I am a sheep of the Good Shepherd, Jesus Christ, and I've willfully rejected it. So those of you who weren't here for my talk about hell, you missed a hell of a conversation, literally. But hell is not a reality that God sends us to do as a punishment. It's actually self-exclusion from the mystery of God. It's like our own choice. It's like we see the goodness of God, we freely choose to reject that goodness, and we hate it. That's hell, right? You hate what you chose, you know. But the point I'm trying to make is that when we receive this indelible mark on our soul, we want to carry that with us in a way that makes us proud of it, right? If I had a tattoo on me that was an American flag, and everywhere I went, I denounced everything about America, having that tattoo it'd be like a conflict, you know? If we have a tattoo on our soul that says, I am a child of God, and I don't have any faith, no conversion of heart, and no adherence to God's will, it's like that tattoo is going to be something that I don't want. It's like it's going to make me feel uncomfortable, you know, that I have this. So, okay, so that's baptism.